Valentizzle. I feel like that's what Top Father would say, right? Happy Valentizzle.
For shizzle.
Yeah, for shizzle. Oh, you know what I should do? I should put my reactions on and see if I can do this. I was working on this last night with my girl for a while. Hold on.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever done this on the screen where then the hearts come out?
I don't know how to do it.
I can honestly say I don't know that I've ever done this in my life, but now I have.
Awkward.
Right. As fun as this is for a while. Apparently, Gen Z does hearts differently too. I learned that last night. They do them like this or something. I don't know.
Who'd you say does them differently? Gen
Z.
Yeah.
She went to Tom's River West.
Yeah.
Gen Z.
Jennifer Z. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but
I got you guys some cards for Valentine's Day. We're gonna have to read them out for the crowd that doesn't get to look, and you should definitely look.
Oh my
Kratz, want to read your card and describe it?
Only you get me this excited. And it's a picture of me at photo day. They always tell me to smile, and I always felt like the smile was weird.
Yeah, you need to smile more, bud.
He does. He smiles all the time.
I'm a happy dude.
He's like
I'm a happy dude.
Todd, if you saw that and you never knew Kratz and you played against him your whole career, you'd be like, this dude is a stone cold killer.
Cold killer. Yeah, exactly. And then you saw him swing a bat and you're like, never mind. We're good.
Never mind. Newspaper. Actually, you probably look at my career with that picture and you're like, this guy hates his entire life. There's no way he likes baseball.
Oh, my God.
Todd, you got one too.
There's a good one. There's a good one.
Read it and describe it.
I don't have a problem with you. Well, that's really, really heartfelt, that one there. That's really nice. That's what it says. And me smiling. I really don't have a problem with you. And probably if I give you a card like that, it means the exact opposite. So I'm just trying to be nice.
Wow. Well, on the day of love, there are a lot of themes here. We're going to charge the mound to shout out one of our favorite players.
Charging the mound.
I mean, does it get any sweeter than this? My fake favorite player, although I do love him, but he was given to me as my favorite player without my consent. Kendall Graveman signs with the Arizona Diamondbacks. 1 year, $1.35 million. That can get up to $3.3 million with performance bonuses. Is it one of you two, or does AJ do this to me? Where they're like, Graveman's your favorite player. Was it you, Todd?
I don't remember that.
Oh, then it's AJ.
No,
it's AJ.
I think it was AJ when we had him on. He was good when we had him on. He was awesome.
Graveman was great. I don't remember the essence of it. Yeah, he did. He had a shoulder injury. He's fully recovered. Arizona adds another piece to their bullpen. Diamondbacks are good. This helps. Graveman was a good reliever for several years, guys. So he comes back and does his thing. This is great. I mean, they just lost Seawald, who had an up and down 2024. But you just start to do these little depth fills. The reliever market was weird this year, Kratz. Sometimes it's this burst and the price is set and then everything just hits. I remember covering a winter meetings, it was probably years ago at this point, where it was like one price came in and then half the free agent relievers signed in a 48-hour span. Yeah, I know.
People signed during winter meetings? That's weird. Scott, you're showing your age by saying that. Welcome to
by winter meetings, I mean February 12th, okay? February 12th is winter meetings every year. We have a virtual winter meetings where we chat on this show about people that we like and things we want to change in baseball, and that's when guys like Bregman and Pivetta and every reliever sign.
The winter thaw meetings. That's what
thaw.
I like this. I like this. This is an opportunity. If you're coming back from an injury, obviously any big league deal you can get is great. If you're a team, the upside is huge here. Yes, you understand this guy isn't going to give you 70 outings. Kendall Graveman's one of his best traits is the dude just goes out there and competes. He's played on winning teams, but at essentially 1.35 or 1.65 with escalators. Well, the escalators hit. That means he's doing awesome. And some teams have pitching coaches, bullpen coaches that are able to get guys like this in a situation to succeed. We just had Torey Lovello on. He's a manager that does a great job of communicating with the player and letting him know what is best for the team, but also finding out what the player needs. Kendall Graveman is a veteran. When he's coming back from this injury, you need to land in a nice soft spot, and this is a great pickup for both. Big league deal for a dude coming off a shoulder injury, and the Diamondbacks just adding more depth. You never know what you're going to get from them.
I'm going to list you the bullpen from Fangraphs here for the Diamondbacks. Justin Martinez, who is fire. AJ Puck, who can be fire, right? We've seen really good stretches from AJ Puck.
Yep.
Kevin Ginkel, very solid. Ryan Thompson, pretty solid. Kendall Graveman, we just talked about. Joe Mantiply, Seth Martinez, and Jordan Montgomery is in there for now. We'll see how that shakes out in spring training. I also want to add that Kendall Graveman gets free meals for life, not in a particular city, Todd Father, but just anywhere that Josh Hader is, because when he went down with that shoulder surgery last year, Hader signed 5 minutes later with the Astros.
Yeah, so it's crazy how that goes. A little bit of, I don't want to say luck, because I don't wish that upon anybody, hurting themselves. That's the worst thing you can do. But yes, that is basically what happened. And, when you think about the Diamondbacks, you think about bullpen, and they do. They have a solid bullpen with these guys. We don't know what Montgomery's going to do, as you talked about. But you get past 6 innings or even 5 innings, if you're a starter, those guys are pretty much locked down pitchers. So, and it didn't matter if a lefty or righty was pitching. They have a guy for every batter. So, it's just a matter of putting everything together, everybody staying healthy, and do what they do 2 years ago. There's some guys right there. Alek Thomas, I can't wait to see him, get after it again this year and, solidify his worth out there. He's an outstanding player. And, some other guys that have been there before to go out there and dominate. It's time to step up if you're the Diamondbacks. You're known for a really good team. Last year you took a little setback. Just finish what you started, and you never know what can happen.
To me, I love Justin Martinez's arm. I love it. The walks are a little high for me, but when you're almost punching out 100 dudes in 70-some innings, like, the potential's there, and you get more veterans around those guys. But to me, Ginkel's like that solid piece in that bullpen. He rarely has big ebbs and flows in his season. He has a little bit of veteran presence, but what Puck did when he came over, he's been bounced around his whole career with the Marlins. It's like, you're going to be one of our best starting pitchers. Never mind, it didn't work out again. We're putting you in a pen. Back next year, starting pitcher. He had like a 1.3, I think, when he came over to the Diamondbacks last year. So if they can keep unlocking value out of guys, to me, that's where Strom comes in. Brent Strom, their pitching coach, comes in and just allows guys to be who they are in a space to succeed. And I love this ad for them because of what that gives the other guys in the pen.
I'll read one fan comment here as we're talking. I Need Money, who's a regular, who's very smart, said, Arizona bullpen is not much different than last season. The bullpen's the reason the team missed the playoffs. Not sure if you can really buy into it. That's a fair statement. The offense certainly wasn't the reason why they missed the playoffs. They had the top run scoring offense in baseball. I could also make a case for some underperformance with the starting staff. Of course, Montgomery was the poster boy for that, but it wasn't the most glorious season for a staff that on paper looked really damn good. Obviously, really, really damn good with Corbin Burns. But it's a fair statement, Kratz. I mean,
it is.
I think a full season of Justin Martinez and maybe just shove him right in that closer role, give him the whole song and dance out of the gates, and give him the pomp and circumstance, and he's going to be a stud. And I don't know. For me, it looks like it should be at least about an average bullpen based on arm talent, but you tell me.
My opinion is they faded towards the end. The reason they faded towards the end is because Gallen was on the IL. They're used to getting he's their workhorse. And last year he was on the IL. Merrill spent time on the IL. That's innings that somebody has to pick up. When do we see bullpens falter? It's at the end of the year. They start getting tired. The walks start going up. And when you get behind an account, you start giving up leads. And it was just like, it was a rotating carousel for these guys of just constantly coming in the fifth inning. Now the fifth inning guy comes in. Now your eighth inning guy's getting stretched for an inning and a third. There was a lot of drain on that bullpen, and people be like, well, it didn't happen to Cleveland. Yeah, but Cleveland's bullpen was historic. To me, if you now add another ace, another workhorse to what Zach Gallen's going to do this year because he's a free agent, you sit there and you go, if you get 7 innings, you can almost pencil in 7 innings from Burns and Gallen. That just extends the season of these relievers. It extends what they can do longer into the season, keeps them fresh, gets them those days off that they need because they have those guys. Merrill's never going to really be that big innings eater guy. Nelson's going to give you his 5. But if you just sit there and you say, I don't have, where's Eduardo Rodriguez? He was, how many starts did he have last year? 10?
Yeah, that's the one I'm not relying on as much. But I do love your point because we got to jump. I do love your point. Corbin Burns makes your bullpen better, period, right? I can sum up Kratz's statement right there. He made the Orioles mid-bullpen last year better because he goes deep every freaking time. Let's swing back with Kenny Ballgame. Ken Rosenthal is joining us. We'll go over the Stroman situation, maybe a little Bregman talk. Got a lot to get to with Ken in a little bit of time. Be right back. This episode of FT is presented by Hungry Root. HungryRoot.com/FT gets you a fire discount. We'll talk about it more in a moment. I feel like we didn't give Todd Father his love yesterday for Hungry Root. With the kiddos running around, you have a pretty hectic lifestyle, Todd Father.
Yeah, it is. It's nonstop. We got afterwards today. We got hip hop competition and we got baseball. So I need to find something quick to eat. So when I go home, I got a half hour. I pop in a little chicken parm that they gave me and little meatball parms too. And it's real quick and easy, man. It doesn't take that long. And I really enjoy it. It's actually really good meal. Like it's something I would have over and over again. It's not those meals where it's like, oh, yeah, I tried it. It was good. I'll tell everybody. But actually, yeah, I've been telling a lot of people because it actually tastes like real authentic, on-the-go food. And it's really good and it's good for you.
And it's your groceries too. So here's the thing. You have certain snacks you like, smoothie drinks, all of that is covered for you. Personalized recommendations, and they get smarter as they learn what you like and don't like. So they'll throw suggestions your way. You can totally customize it and be a boss and just be like, nah, I'm picking this. But they will help you and they will send things. And also, obviously, there are no artificial sweeteners, no preservatives. So go check it out, FT fam. You're going to love Hungry Root if you haven't tried it out. And there's a crazy discount to start. 40% off your first box for a limited time, plus a free item in every box for life. HungryRoot.com/FT. Use code FT. HungryRoot.com/FT. Code F as in foul, T as in territory. Go get after it, FT fam. If you have a question for Ken Rosenthal, drop it in for us. We'll bring in Ken coming up in just a moment. We'll try to get to Pivetta, Rendon, Stroman, maybe a little Bregman, Arenado. There's a lot going on. It's the Inside Scoop with FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal. Ken, great to have you on. A lot to get to. I'm going to get right to business, and happy Valentine's Day to you and your family. So, on that note, of course, on that note, Ken, you know what's funny? Marcus Stroman shows back up to camp a day after all kinds of drama in Tampa because they wanted him to be there. And he alluded to Valentine's Day being part of the reason why he shows up for camp. Do you believe that? And what's going on here?
I don't really think anything's going on other than Marcus being Marcus. He's kind of an individualist. He always has been. And I guess Todd and Erik could tell me better whether this kind of thing causes a ripple in the clubhouse. He is not technically late, as he pointed out, and he's still well ahead of the mandatory date as well as the first full workout. So I kind of thought this was a big nothing. It's only a something, in my opinion, because he is a different personality and because also he is someone that the Yankees probably will trade, or at least will really try to trade. They're trying to do that right now. So there's some stuff swirling around about him. He's got a vesting option that kicks in at 140 innings, and that's why he said this morning, I want to start. Duh. It's worth $18 million. If he gets the 140, he gets the 18. So I don't expect he's going to be a Yankee opening day with all the pitching injuries that are certainly inevitable in this sport before that day comes. There's going to be some team that I think the Yankees can offload him to and maybe create some room to get another infielder.
There's a way he's handled this because you said he's an individual and you know there's different things that he does differently than other people. The way he's handled this, does this make him untradeable or not much value?
I guess the question, Erik, is if his personality is a turnoff to other teams to the extent where they're thinking, you know what, we're not going there. But really, for the most part last season, he was an entirely good citizen. And there was no problem with Marcus Stroman. Remember, when his role was reduced for the postseason, he was fine. He didn't cause a stir. So I'm not saying the reputation is overblown. The reputation is there for a reason. But I remember writing last year at this time that the Yankees felt that they could absorb him and Verdugo and some of the other different guys that they had and that it would not be a problem. And it really wasn't a problem. So he's a guy who, at this point in his career, is not a top-of-the-rotation starter, but can he give you innings? Can he be competent? Yeah, he's shown that repeatedly. And I would not say he's a bad teammate. He's just a different guy.
Alex Bregman signed. Big deal there with the Red Sox. Now we lean towards Nolan Arenado. Still got some juice left. Really good third baseman, as we know. Couple things here. Is there anything flowing with him moving to another team? And how are the Cardinals feeling right now? Are they frustrated? Are they upset? Like, what do you think the mood is over there in Cardinal land?
Todd, my guess is the Cardinals were upset when he rejected the trade to Houston because that would have solved this whole problem. And by waiting, what happened? He lost his most desired landing spot, Boston, and now there seemingly is nowhere for him to go. John Mozeliak, their president of baseball operations, said yesterday, telling reporters, hey, he's got to expand his list of teams that he would be willing to play for, or else we're really kind of at a crossroads here or at a roadblock. So I don't know what's going to happen here. Obviously, injuries could create a need elsewhere. We know the Cardinals are willing to pick up a significant amount of cash, but he's still signed for 3 more years. And even if you're getting him at 3 years, say $45 million, which is about what the Astros' obligation would have been, it's still a good amount of money for a guy who has had pretty sharp offensive declines the last 2 years. Do I believe Nolan Arenado is still a really good player? Yeah, I do. And I think he can come back and be more towards what we've expected of him in the past. But he hasn't shown that. And that's really the biggest thing that, to me, is a problem here, besides the fact that he only has a limited number of places he wants to go. So at the moment, it looks like he'll be a Cardinal opening day, but you never know what might transpire in the weeks ahead.
Who does this hurt the most, Arenado or the Cardinals? Cardinals have young guys that they want to bring up. Obviously, they don't want to pay the money, but they're going to be eating some of this. They're getting, to me, Arenado's a draw. I get it. He's not the MVP candidate that he was, but he's still a Gold Glove candidate. So who's hurt the most here?
Both. Arenado's hurt because he wants to go to a place where he can win. The Cardinals, they haven't spent a single dollar in Major League free agency this winter because they are taking this approach where they're going to retool a little bit. Now, it's interesting to me, if you're going to retool, trade Helsley, trade some of your players with value, but they're not doing that. they are, in the last year of Mozeliak's tenure here, seemingly trying to put a presentable product on the field, which is fine. I have no problem with that, but they're kind of caught in between. And in this sport, we've seen time and again, you don't want to be caught in between. You want to be either going forward or kind of retooling and pushing for the future. So Arenado's hurt because he's not with a team that is really going for it. And the Cardinals are hurt just for the reason you said, Erik. They want to go forward. They want to save some money, right? Maybe get a prospect back for Arenado. And they want to play guys like Donovan and others at third base. And now he is kind of blocking that path for them.
I want to move a little bit north to Tito Francona. I want to talk about Reds a little bit. This guy has been phenomenal. We know about the health scares. We know about all the surgeries. He is living a different life, as you've said before, and as you've said here, and as you got quoted. Talk a little bit about Tito and what we're going to look forward to. Is it going to be the same guy, fiery guy, or, just talk a little bit about him, because, listen, the Reds needed a manager to get going here. I think they found the right one, and I think he's going in the right path, too, as well, health-wise.
Todd, he's the same guy personality-wise. He's never going to change. He's Tito, and that personality is maybe the main reason he's been such a successful manager. And I was in their camp 2 days ago, and pretty much everyone there is saying it's a different vibe. Now, not that it was a bad vibe under David Bell, but David Bell was a first-time manager who didn't have success. There's going to be a natural tension there as he tries to win and tries to kind of build something. Tito has been there, done that. He's won 2 World Series, nearly won a third. He has seen it all, done it all, and has a way about him that enables him to specially connect with players. And that is his magic to me. The way he connects with guys and kind of keeps them going. It's not that he is totally a player's manager and just let guys just go out and play. But he is kind of firmly confident, if that's the right way to put it. I don't know that it is. That's not a great phrase necessarily. But he's firm in his convictions. He wants the game played a certain way. He has a confidence about him because he's been there and done that. And yet at the same time, he's one of the funniest guys that we all know. And he conveys that to the players as well. His self-deprecating style, that endears him to guys. So I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team this year, but they have the ability, with Matt McClain coming back, with some of the additions, to at least compete for a wild card. And we will see again how much a difference maker Francona can be. He's been that guy in the past.
And if you want Ken's take, first of all, great to have Tito back. If you want Ken's take on Bregman and Pivetta, he was all over it on Fair Territory with Alana Rizzo. I know some of you are asking about it. So the episode's out. You can go check that out later on because there's 2 more things I want to get to here, Ken. Number 1, Shohei Ohtani. I know you touched on that briefly in Fair Territory. Does anyone think it's unfair that the rule was tweaked specifically for him? We did a segment on the other day. Obviously, Dodgers fans lost their minds and say we hate the Dodgers, blah, blah, blah. But is it fair to change a rule based on a player's injury projection here and say now it's eligibility for the 2A status for 2 years instead of 1?
Well, first of all, this rule was created essentially for Ohtani, right? The 2-way player rule, which enables a team to carry an extra pitcher because that player is not designated as a pitcher. So the Dodgers, once Ohtani can pitch again, will be able to carry 14 pitchers instead of 13. That is an undeniable advantage. So that's where this started. Now, this rule was changed, I believe, at the start of 23. And it was changed for a variety of reasons. I'm not exactly sure exactly why, but I don't think it was necessarily stemming from his injury. They had an idea to go back to the way it was supposed to be originally when you have 2 years previous, if you can hit those standards, the 20 innings pitched, the 20 starts as a position player with at least 3 plate appearances per game. If you do that in the 2 previous years, either of the 2 previous years, you're good. You're qualified as a 2-way player. So I don't know that we're going to hear any squawking about this. This rule was in place. The only reason this even came to light is because MLB.com on their website had not adjusted what the previous rule had been. It had been the original rule. So that's the only reason I knew about this in the first place. One of our producers pointed it out to me and said, hey, look at this. There was a tweet about it. So I asked about it, and Fabian Ardaya and I did a story yesterday about it. But I don't know that you can say this is any more in favor of Ohtani than the original rule was. they want to encourage two-way players. That's why this rule is in place.
Is there anything that you have to add on the whole Rendon hip surgery thing? Like, now that we're hearing possibly he could think about retirement because of how extensive a hip surgery is?
First of all, he's not going to retire with money due to him. Players never do that. They just stay on the DL, or the IL, I should say, and that's how they finish their careers, if indeed that's where this is headed. So he has 2 years left. He's not retiring at the end of the season. He's not walking away from that money. No player does that. He would not be the first in that situation. Now, will he ever play again? That is something that I think we all have doubts about. Probably Anthony Rendon has doubts about that. So the Angels were never planning on him being a big part of what they were going to do. I think we talked about this the other day. They signed Moncada. They knew that Rendon, even if this hip surgery had been avoided and had never came to pass, that he was not a guy who had played a lot the last few years. So that's why they signed Moncada. They go forward in that sense. And whether Rendon plays again or not, I guess in some way it will depend. I guess it always depends on his desire to do that. After all this surgery that he's had and after all the different physical issues, and that will be on Anthony Rendon.
Ken, there's no better way to finish your segment today than to talk nicely, I'm being sarcastic, about your favorite friend who's not here today, AJ Pierzynski. So on Valentine's Day, I'm going to actually present you something AJ said the other day that I highly, highly debated him on and contested him on. He didn't like the Kenley Jansen signing for the Angels because he feels like Ben Joyce should be the guy in the ninth. And I could see them holding him back. That helps them in arbitration with a young flamethrower and all of that. But also, Kenley does give them more depth in the bullpen. It's not like you can't have multiple high-leverage relievers. And if they're not good, they can get something for him at the trade deadline. So would you like to be on my side here when AJ can't defend himself?
I am on your side. And I don't understand why AJ would oppose getting another good reliever. That's what the Angels are doing here. And Kenley Jansen also offers the intangible of being able to groom Ben Joyce into this role. This is not an easy role. We all know that. And Ben Joyce will learn from Kenley Jansen. Kenley Jansen's a great teammate. He is one of these players who is willing to share his wisdom. And the Angels, as screwy as they are, and they are a little bit screwy, they are not conceding here. They have done some things. Kikuchi was one. Jansen's another. There have been a few moves in between with the goal of winning. And they've brought in some players that they feel are highly professional, Travis d'Arnaud, Jorge Soler, and they believe that they're going to be a better club. How good, we'll see. But that's what the Angels are doing here. They're not trying to finish last again. They want to compete. They want to be as good as they can. We can debate whether they will be good and whether their moves have been the right kinds of moves. I get it. And we can also say, why don't they just trade Trout and start over? That's a good question too. But this is the path they're taking. And if you're taking that path, Kenley Jansen makes perfect sense.
There we go. See, beautifully, beautifully stated poetry to our friend AJ, and a great way to finish the segment here on a Friday. Ken, thank you for the time. I, of course, wholeheartedly agree with you. Enjoy the weekend and the camps.
Hey, happy Valentine's Day to AJ. I hope he's having a great day.
Beautiful.
That's nice.
We will clip that. Thank you, Ken. Fair Territory, part of the FT Network. Fresh episode yesterday. A good chunk of time on that Alex Bregman signing, so go check it out. And then they talked about the uniqueness of the Nick Pivetta deal as well. FT fam, be right back. We'll still give you our take on the Stroman situation later. We got Orioles storylines, a lot to get to. Jacob Junis signed, and being that we might not have time to cover it on the main show, we can give it to the YouTube fam. So it's a $5 million contract this season for Cleveland, and he can serve as a swingman, which is pretty important for Cleveland. So it guarantees 4.5. So this is Kylie McDaniel breaking the story yesterday. 1-year contract, 4.5, can work as a starter or a reliever. 265 innings pitched over the last 3 seasons for the Giants, the Brewers, and the Reds. And yeah, last year he signed for $7 million with Milwaukee. It sounded like they initially wanted to be a starter. He bounced around a little bit. So this is a guy that I also think fits the StatCast darling metrics too. Wasn't he one of those guys last year for Milwaukee? Kratz, were you paying attention to what he was bringing to the table there?
Oh, 100%. He has since 23. It was actually partly through 22 is when I saw it. He started to realize that he doesn't need to fit the mold of what everyone else thinks he needs to do. And I think San Francisco really helped him. And I was nervous about him going to Milwaukee. He just said, I'm going to throw strikes. This is a dude that had a whip below a 1, I think, last year, even below a 0.9. He said, I'm going to throw strikes. Doesn't mean he doesn't walk guys. It just means he's going to throw strikes. He doesn't have high velo. But, man, he gets such soft contact. This is a huge value pickup, I think, for the Guardians. I kind of forgot he was out there.
Yeah, me too. I forgot about him too. But Todd Father, classic case of going team by team and each team telling you, your slider's really good. You should use it more. And you just keep using it more and more. And also try to avoid lefties in the lineup if you're bringing them out as a reliever, right? Maybe you find a patch of righties and you attack.
Yeah. When he first came up too, I remember facing him. He had a heavier fastball than usual. Like it had some ride effect to it that you're like, man, why am I missing this? Just one of those pitchers where you just did not have a good feel on. And he's really good, man. He's just going to keep on going. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. Doesn't matter what team he's with. It's a guy that's a staple for that team, and he's going to give you innings, and he's going to go out there and give you what he's got. And like Kratz says, you strike thrower. Again, people are going to walk, but at the same time, when you're throwing strikes, your defense got to be ready, and most of the time they will be ready. So, again, nice little pickup here by the Guardians. There's going to be a lot more of these picks coming up. There's still a ton of free agents out there, so we'll see as we keep moving forward here in February.
Yeah, good job by Cleveland. They need innings. And also, just going back to Ken for 1 second, maybe we should have shown him the Valentine's Day card. That's my bad, Kratz. Ken is Knuff.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
We got a couple Framber Valdez quotes and then some fire from the Tigers too. But let's start with Framber. We can show them both and then comment afterward. They both were notable. He was asked about Jose Altuve playing in left field. And I love this answer. Quote, I don't think it's going to happen. That's just a lot of talk. Second base or nothing. And then he was also asked if he'd been approached about an extension. And he said, no approach from the Astros. And he's been under their watch for a while. So that's pretty telling. No approach about an extension from the team. So I would imagine he's going to get himself to free agency after this year. But let's start at the top. Did you guys like that? Because Todd Father, this has been a story for a while now. And we've been debating if he should play second or left. Obviously, his defensive metrics at second base have diminished. That doesn't mean he's going to be a good left fielder and he'd have to learn a new position. He's willing to do it. But Framber's like, nah. And maybe he's referring to how they were trying to recruit Bregman. But now that there's no Bregman, they'll have him practice out there, but not really end up doing it once the season starts.
No, and I think he's right. It sounds like he's part of the, brass of the team. I love this kind of talk. But, yeah, I agree. I remember Kratzy talking about how tough it would be on his legs. He's getting older. I think this, is the right idea. Keep him at second base. He's not the worst second base, and sometimes his throws go awry a little bit. But, that's him. He's second base. I like that. Second base or nothing. Poppy, let's go. And I haven't had any extension talks. Any other questions? They're probably like, all right, well, I got everything done. So, Framber's a good dude, and hopefully he stays healthy this year too and goes out there and dominate.
No matter what we think about Altuve's defense at second, if a pitcher that's thrown in front of him for 5 years, because pitchers know every single dude that they do not want anybody to hit the ball to, he knows if Altuve is brutal at second base like some people are saying he is. I don't think he's brutal, but I also don't think it's second base or nothing. They get Bregman. They ain't putting Altuve on the bench. Let's put it that way. And that's what nothing is. He didn't say second base or DH or second base or he's traded. He said nothing. And they ain't going to live with nothing of Altuve. They need this man back in the lineup. If it meant he needed to go to left, I'm sure he would have gone to left. But just listen to the pitchers. The pitchers know. Like, if a pitcher's like, man, I really love how's his defense? I really love how he swings it. He's a big part of our lineup. Do you trust him back there? Man, it's so nice to watch him run the bases. Like he said, he's a second baseman. He doesn't care that he's out there.
Hey, more on this because this is going to be a topic all spring training long. We'll cover it, but we have to cover the other 29. Crush City doesn't. They just cover the Astros. It's Chandler Rome, it's Tyler Stafford, and it's Josh Reddick in the middle there, the former Astro. They'll give this a lot of time. Go check it out wherever you can find your shows. And now let's go to Tiger territory because Scott Harris spoke minutes before the show began today. And of course, the question was, what happened? How come you didn't get Bregman? So I'm going to read one, and then we have two more we'll show you. But I'm going to read one that I just found that I think is going to get the most pub. Evan Petzold posted this one from the president of baseball operations. Scott Harris said, quote, "We're going to be just fine without Alex Bregman. We still have a clubhouse that just got to the postseason and just beat a team with Alex Bregman. So it clearly can be done." I'll give you a couple more. So now we can go over these quotes here. Scott Harris today saying, "We want players who want to be here. I say it a lot because I mean it. We want players who want to be Tigers. We made a very compelling offer to Alex Bregman, but he chose to sign somewhere else. That's fine." And then he talked about if they're in the market for a righty bat. He said, "I don't think there's going to be one coming through free agency. We're going to explore trade opportunities. We feel really good about the group we have, and we think it's a group that's going to continue to get better." Say it with your chest. Todd Father, I like this. Hey, this dude doesn't want to be here. Screw it. We're going to beat him wherever he is.
Listen, you love everything. You're the best. You love those quotes. It's straight from the Piper's mouth. Listen, go on with it, man. I listen, if you got to go with what you feel, you got to talk how you feel. Sometimes, some people might not like it, but there's no taking back anything, man. This is the life we live in, and I'm glad some people are approaching things differently, and this is the new era. So here we go. Buckle up.
I love it. I mean, they made every effort to say, "Alex, do you want to be a Tiger? Here's the money we're going to give you. It's more than anybody else is giving you." So when we talk about, they didn't try hard enough, Tigers tried hard enough. And Scott Harris, I think Scott's like 38 years old. He's a young exec. He's been around the game, different teams. He's seen winning, and him and AJ Hinch, to me, are trying to create a culture there that it's okay. Like, if he didn't accept our offer, we showed he really wanted him, we're moving on. We got dudes. You want a right-handed bat? Maybe they said, the whole right-handed bat thing, Spencer Torkelson might have already been in the batting cage. They got a dude on the roster that they don't have a spot for right now that had 30 dingers. Like, there's potential there. You would love to have seen it solidified with an Alex Bregman.
And you're right. Scott Harris, born 87, so he's probably 37 right now, would be my guess, unless he had an early birthday. So, yeah, he's a younger general manager, and he definitely has a little confidence that I like in a quote like that. I'm going to go back against your Torkelson talk because Colt Keith's at first.
I'm just saying they need a right-handed bat.
I agree. They do need a right-handed bat. Kerry Carpenter is going to get a lot of DH time, although I don't think he's that bad in the outfield. So for that young of a dude, I would like to see him play in the outfield more. I get that there's, some playing time shuffling to figure out. You're right, though. I mean, if Torkelson just absolutely tears up spring training, it's going to be different. He's very humbled right now, and he's trying to take like a me against the world approach in a good way. He talked in camp already about how he understands that he hasn't performed up to expectations. So he's just going to try and go prove himself. He said all the right things. He's a good dude, good fella. But back to Scott Harris quotes here. Todd Father, if I was the president of baseball operations for the Tigers and I made the best offer, really by far in terms of guaranteed money, I'd be pretty pissed off. Because this is something you have to get permission for from your ownership group. And you're like, hey, I think this guy could give us, 5 to 7 more wins this season, something like that, right? Don't just go off WAR. He can make an impact on the team, both on the field and off the field. I think this guy could vault us into a division title and a title contender, right? So yeah, I'd be ticked, and I like the way he said it.
I would be a little peeved, but at the same time, I'd be a little confused too. Like, listen, I put my neck on the line here to get you, and I made the best offer. I gave you years. I gave you the most money. What else could I have done? I don't know that, and that's why you just kind of like bewildered a little bit. Like, dude, we got AJ Hinch over here, and that's your guy. Like, what else could we have done? You sit back maybe over a dinner or whatever, and you talk to your cronies, and you're like, man, all right, well, there goes one. I mean, hopefully this isn't a trend here, but I don't think it is. But at the same time, it's like you always have something in the back of your mind. So I'd be a little confused a little bit why he wouldn't come over there.
Maybe if they felt like if the Tigers were used to just build up other prices, maybe then they'd have a chance to feel pissed off. But to me, just like any other job, you give it the best shot that you had. You might have extended, hey, you know what, ownership let me into the purse strings a little bit, so I got into that cash. But you know what? Maybe it opens up an opportunity for somebody else. Maybe your willingness to be a winning team, I get it. It's going to be tough to get Arenado to say, I want to go to Detroit. Maybe he doesn't want to go from St. Louis to Detroit. I get that. That's why but he could change his mind. He clearly needs to change his mind if he wants to get out of St. Louis. And you're almost getting the same offensive value as what Bregman did last year. We're only going on last year. Recency bias, I get that. And Arenado's been declining. I get that. But you're going to get a guaranteed better glove. So to me, their value based on WAR was almost exactly the same. You would be paying this dude around, as Ken just said, possibly for 3 years at $15 a year. Just something to get out there. Possibly it's there. The numbers aren't that different, but we were talking about Bregman getting $200 million. I get it. Arenado doesn't want to go there. People change their mind.
I'm with you. I mean, he's not going to get traded when you give 5 teams. One just signed a guy. The Yankees weren't interested. The Padres can't take on that kind of money. The Dodgers don't have room. And then there might be one other team I'm missing. I don't know. It's a tough sell. Yeah, I'm with you.
How bad does Nolan want to play and win? Obviously, he's going to play in St. Louis. And obviously, he was a Rocky when they were good, so he knew winning then. Then he went to St. Louis, and they've stunk for half his time there. So how bad does he want to win?
We will
see.
All
right. One more for That's What He Said. The legend, Patrick Murphy, manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, just getting it out of the way. So Adam McCalvey writes on this tweet, if you were surprised to hear Pat Murphy name an opening day starter on Wednesday, the very day pitchers and catchers reported to spring training, you were not alone. Freddie Peralta was named the opening day starter, and they asked him about it, and the quote was, I was like, hey, it's not even the first day. And I'm sure he was smiling and laughing because that's Freddie's style. He's full of smiles. But Murph was hilarious. He's like, yeah, I know you guys want that. So there you go. Freddie's starting. Ha. Now you can't bother me about it.
Why not? We should have asked it. When I saw this came out, I was super bummed that I didn't ask him who was going to be the opening day starter. But it never, not even once, came to my head when we saw him at the BBWAs.
You were going to ask him?
No.
Yeah.
I'm saying I wish I would have. It just never wouldn't have been something like, it's usually halfway through spring training, how everything's lined up. But everybody's pitching. They got a big calendar in the manager's office. They know when every single pitcher is pitching. And when that gets off, like it's like 6 days here. Oh, now we're ready for 5 days. And we're only going to go 5 innings here. And then boom, opening day. And you can see who it's going to line up. I love it that they already did it.
And then, listen, the Marlins did the same thing. Didn't they already name a starter for the Marlins? Sandy Alcantara.
Did they say it already?
Yeah. They did too.
Yeah,
so
did.
Listen, it's not the end of the world. You can always change your mind. And I think people don't understand that. But, hey, listen, you're the starter. Let's go. You're our guy. Let's go. Now it's like, all right, you're going to bed with a little chip on your shoulder. Like, yeah, I am. Let's do this. That's exciting. So let's go through the camp knowing I'm gearing up for day one, and now you got your plan set. It helps out players in the long run.
Also, I mean, who else is starting game one for the Brewers? Freddie's been the rock now, right? It was Corbin, Woodruff, Freddie. Corbin gone, Woodruff hurt. Now Woodruff rehabbing, trying to get back. Looking pretty normal right now in spring training. They're pumped, but he's not going to do opening day. Freddie Peralta. I mean, there's nobody else that's going to be in that category. He's earned it. So that's an easy one.
I can't name their 5 starters, and I'm a Brewers fan. And that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough, especially with DL Hall's. Now he's going to start the season on the IL. Well, he's shut down right now. Honestly, they haven't said the word IL, but they said the word shoulder.
Your boy is there. Nasty Nestor won't come on the show. Nasty Nestor in Milwaukee.
I'm saying 5. I can't name all 5. Big Woo's throwing. Big Woo might be throwing right now, or maybe he finished already.
No, he threw already.
He's thrown today.
He threw already, and they like cheered, and it was cool. You know, they did like a, hey, welcome back. Do they do that? Is that a normal thing when like a guy comes back from a long injury where he like finally throws to hitters, and they did kind of a like, let's go. I think they maybe did like some hugs and stuff. Like, you're back, dude. Just depends.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's that kind of guy, though. He's that kind of guy that some guys, they go on the IL and they go like they're a recluse. Big Woo's there. Big Woo's one of the guys. Like, he's so relatable to everybody. And so I'm sure that's when it really hits guys when they make their first, live batting practice sesh. That's big. So I'm glad they did something cool for him.
I also want to be fair to the Brewers on the way out here. So Freddie P. 1. Number 2 starter, who was damn good last year. It's just a new name. Tobias Myers. Very good last year.
Nasty.
Nestor Cortez, 3. And then 4 actually is a guy that the front office loves and that many front offices love, and he's been up and down. But remember, he just finished, top 10, I think, in Stuff Plus that just came out, Aaron Savali. And then they've got Aaron Ashby right now as the 5. So
I forgot about.
I see you, Milwaukee. Hey, this is the time of year. Spring training, we get cleaned up on all the roster stuff because obviously there was no reason for us to talk about Tobias Myers between, like October 3rd or whatever their last day was. And he was really good in that last game. And then just now, dude's with the team, league minimum, second year, or whatever it is for him on service time, blah, blah, blah. All right, coming up next, we're going to get to the Baltimore Orioles. We got storylines for you. All right, signing and a couple questions. Let me do the questions first. Someone brought up Arenado to the Jays as a question. Steven asked, I mean, sure, awesome fit. Will Nolan go? Probably not. Okay. And then one more follow-up was, would you rather try and force it now if you're Nolan and the Cardinals, or do you at this point just wait and let him actually prove himself because it works for both sides? If he's good in this first half, Todd Father, better than he was with the bat last year, more of a, say, 20% better than league average versus league average bat, more teams are going to be interested. That opens up more opportunities for him. And it opens up better trade opportunities for the Cardinals to get the money that they want taken in the contract.
Yeah, but it also hurts him. What happens if he comes out and first 2 months he's batting .215? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what happens if it does? You got to take both. So right now, if I'm Arenado, I'm trying to get out of there now, just in case, I do have a stinky first half or a couple months. So then you're stuck. Then you're stuck there for forever until you're done playing, pretty much. So it's a tough situation to be in. You put all your coins in and say, I'm all in. I'm gonna bet on myself this year because I didn't get what I wanted, or do you find a way to get a team before spring training ends and go there? So it's really tough to do, really tough decision, especially as you're getting older.
I don't think his decline has been that steep for 3 years. He was MVP, third in the MVP race in 22. So 2 seasons, he's had a steep decline. But you're talking about a dude that's going to play elite defense still.
Yep.
And a dude that is essentially 100 or less strikeouts per season. And he's on the field all the time. So he's going to be out there. First half, he's going to play 81 games. Like, he is on the field. It's what he's done. It's his MO. So to me, that value is right now for a team, is right now for Arenado to go be on a team, be out there every day, solidify that third base position for a team that needs it.
And the Cardinals are going to play him because they want to trade him. So I originally was like, what if he gets off to a slow start, but the Cardinals get off to a fast start and they want to play someone else over him? They won't, because they'll want him to swing out of it and get on a good track so that the trade value is still there. You don't want to start sitting him consistently. So it's just a little sloppy now. It is what it is. Here we are back. We're going to go over storylines soon, and we'll have a special guest joining us for it, Steve Melewski, who has covered the Orioles for over 20 years, is getting ready to join us. Can we actually hit the storylines? Because then I can at least kind of give everyone a taste of what we're about to do, and then maybe we'll see if we can get Steve going. Otherwise, we'll cover those topics, and then we'll mix Steve in on the back end of it. So let's hit the storylines thing. All right, here's what we want to cover with Baltimore. Let's start with the starting staff. They lost Corbin Burnes. They made major waves last year when they picked up Burnes via trade with the Brewers. But Burnes is gone. He goes to Arizona. Charlie Morton and Shigano on the back end of that rotation. Winning in October, the O's haven't won a playoff game since 2014. That needs to change in 2025. They're in their winning window, and that was after that really, really rough tank job that we saw for a long period of time. Show Gunnar Henderson the money right now while you still can. Baltimore has new ownership. They said that no finances are going to hold them back, so that Bobby Witt Jr. deal would be a nice little comp, something to think about. Mm-hmm. And also for Baltimore, there it is. Yes, winning in October, and happy holidays too. Jackson Holliday, how will the former number one overall pick perform in his sophomore season after an up and down rookie campaign? He's very, very young. So let's go over all of this right now. We're going to bring in our guest making his FT debut, Steve Melewski. You can follow him at Steve on Baseball, covers the Orioles for a long time, as I mentioned. Steve, great to have you on. I'm going to go right to biz. And this is the big question. Is the starting rotation good enough to be a division title contender and really a World Series contender? Because they're right in the thick of their winning window, and they lost Corbin Burnes. What do you think?
Well, there are a few ifs there, as I think people know. I think one way the Orioles would look at this, Scott, is Zach Eflin was really good in his 9 Orioles starts, sub-3 ERA. Grayson Rodriguez, in his last, let's say, 33 starts after he came back, he got to the majors, really struggled, went back to AAA. In the 33 starts since he has been back in the big leagues, his ERA is 3.35. His WHIP is like 1.15. And I mean, those stats are not far off what Cole Reagans has done and did last year when he was, I believe, 4th in the Cy Young. So I think the Orioles, looking optimistically, say, last year, they combined for 29 starts for our team. This year, if they can combine for 60, maybe even a few more, then at least the front end is formidable, and we'll see how Sagano does. We'll see if Charlie Morton still has some magic at 41. Can Dean Kramer take a step forward? And then they've got some depth behind that.
As a former 1-1 pick, Jackson Holliday had an up and down rookie year. A lot of really exciting moments for a baby to be in the big leagues. What's the outlook for his sophomore season? Because he's going to need to improve if this team is going to keep him in the lineup to go somewhere.
Exactly. Talk about the smallest of sample sizes. It was the final weekend of the regular season in 2024, the Orioles at Minnesota. And Jackson Holliday that weekend dropped the high leg kick he had used throughout his amateur and professional career to that point. They had behind the scenes been working on some tweaks, and he was drilling the ball. He went like 4 for 5 that weekend. He hit one 400 feet off the left center field wall in Minnesota. And so, again, that's the ultimate small sample size. But Brandon Hyde said he was incredibly encouraged by that change. And he had all winter to be at home in Oklahoma with his dad working on it. He reported to Florida, even bigger and stronger, added some weight. And so I think we know this kid's mental makeup is incredibly strong. So the struggles he had, I don't think that's going to bother him in the least. I think he remains very confident in what he can do. For me, it's a matter, guys, does he improve to league average or does he take a step beyond that, which I think eventually he is going to do.
Another guy, Gunnar Henderson, who's been absolutely spectacular these first couple of years here, just coming into his own. Time to lock him up, man. I got a feeling this is one of those guys that should be there for a long time. I think he will be there for a long time. He's got comps to, Bobby Witt Jr. kind of look and feel and play and money-wise. What's holding them back here a little bit?
Well, I think the first year of the new ownership with David Rubenstein and his group was a fact-finding year, learning what it's like to own a major league club. He had never done that. There are a lot of ballpark improvements the Orioles are making. So there are things happening beyond just the major league roster. But Mike Elias has said, he's got their full support. Their payroll did grow to 15th from near the bottom this year. A lot of that with arbitration raises, but they also added O'Neill. They have Eflin at $18 million. So there is some spending not seen in Baltimore in several years to this point. But you're right. Fans and media wonder when will be the big signing. They didn't re-sign Burns. They didn't get Max Fried. They haven't extended any of the young guys. And I mean, you got Adley, you got Gunnar, you got Westberg, you got Grayson, you got Galzer. Everywhere you look, there's a young guy who might be part of their long-term future. But Gunnar heads that list. I mean, if they could lock him up, that would be a World Series type parade in Baltimore, knowing they have this kid for many years to come.
Steve, in 2014, I was in the dugout for the 2 games in Baltimore where our Royals pounded the Orioles, and a security guard, while we were leaving, said, "We'll see you guys in 4 days," meaning they were going to beat us in KC and we were going to come back. Well, now we're in 2025. Still haven't seen a playoff victory since then. So whoever that security guard was is probably sick and tired of this. And how's it going to turn around in 2025? Because you've seen it. You've seen this tank job, and it's built up for this team. They need to change it in 2025. How are they going to do it?
Well, when someone asked me this week, what's going to determine the season, I said, it's going to be 6 months of the grind of baseball to get to October, which when a year from now, that's how we'll look at their season. How did October go? Team has been swept out 2 straight years, 10 straight playoff losses. They have not won a playoff series since the series before that, ALCS in 2014 against the Tigers. So that is the next stepping stone for the Orioles. They have rebuilt the team. They went from 115 losses to 101 wins. They showed they can win the AL East in 2023. They've still got a fertile farm. Now they have to win in October. I mean, that's the next step for this team. And as we know, the Yankees will tell you, even the Dodgers could tell you, many bites at the apple before you actually get it. It is the crapshoot, they say, October baseball now in Major League Baseball. But that's the next hurdle for this team. And when October comes, the pressure will be on the Orioles. If they make it, which they look like, they have a good chance to do.
Steve, did you say a fertile farm? I just want to make sure I heard you right.
It has fallen in the farm rankings. I'll grant you that. But they still have 2 top 15 guys here, Basayo and Mayo, 2 top 15, top 20, who we have barely seen. And some guys behind that they like Bradfield. So I think it was a natural progression. You cannot stay number 1 forever. The Braves have sort of done it. The Dodgers, it's hard to win at the major league level and have a top farm. So, yeah, it's probably not as fertile as it was when they were ranked number 1, when guys like Jackson Holliday were in the farm and going further back, Adley and Gunnar. but I think they still feel good about it, and they really feel good about their international program, which if you look at their top 30 right now, it's almost half international. There are very few teams that can say that. So they do have a next wave or two coming, they feel.
I love that you said fertile farm. The issue is what happens from a fertile farm? You build beautiful, beautiful produce, but if it never gets picked, it rottens. And all of these prospects could be rotting. Is Mike Elias going to be able to create all these beautiful prospects and never get rid of them to get over the hump? Or is he going to be able to change his evaluation and say, you know what? It's okay. We got rid of Norby. He's going to have success, but we believe we picked up Rodgers. Whether it's good or bad, is he going to be able to get away from that evaluation, or is it going to be the same old, same old?
Well, I think the pressure on the Oriole front office is, okay, you rebuilt it. You said you wanted to make an elite farm system. You did. You said you wanted to get back to winning. You did. And now, can they win in October? That pressure is on the entire organization from Mike Elias on down. And I think Mike is a first-time general manager. And while he's been very good in Baltimore, he would probably even tell you that now the test for him and his staff is to keep it going, keep winning. He said, I only want to rebuild this once. We don't want to go through this twice. And stay relevant, stay winning, stay good, keep the window vast, and kick the door in. So that's the test for Mike, too. He got him to this point. Now what does he and his staff do to take the next steps?
I'm with you. Hey, we're waiting for it. I know Baltimore is very, very anxious for that next step. So we'll see what happens. It's great to have you on here for the first time. Really appreciate it, Steve. Everyone can give Steve a follow if you don't already. Steve on Baseball covers the Orioles super, super well. So we appreciate it. Great to have you.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All right, FT fam. We'll be right back to go over the Marcus Stroman story. And Ronald Acuña Jr. has some good news. All right, we didn't get to that White Sox signing. Joey Gallo signs a minor league contract with the White Sox, and this is just beautiful because AJ is a White Sox fan. He's not here today, and he has always had interesting thoughts on Joey Gallo as well. Joey definitely is not for the old school batting average lovers. I'll be frank there. He would say it too, even during his glory days, because Joey had some big days with the Texas Rangers. But as far as I remember, I want to say there was like 1 year where he had this batting average anomaly. But the rest of his career, you would look here. I'm going to go right now. You guys want to guess what his career high batting average season is? And it is worlds higher than any other season that he had.
250.
275.
253. Good job, Kratz.
You cheated, man. As usual.
Yeah, come on. Number 2, he was banging.
Yeah, I just watch baseball.
Yeah. Number 2.
I watched Little League, sorry.
There you go. Okay, so that was in 2019 with Texas, and the second best batting average that he ever put together was in the low 200s. Yeah, so I think number 2 was 209. I think I've got that right. In 2017. Yeah, 209. And since he hit, in 2021, he hit 199. And since then, we've got a 160. And
his value's in the OPS. I remember that season he hit 250.
Yeah.
Because he widened out and he would go no stride sometimes.
Yeah.
This is unbelievable. What's he gonna do? Listen, everybody gets enamored by this stuff. They get enamored by he made the swing change. Dude, you're always trying to swing change. You're always trying to change your swing to do something better. I hit 40 homers. I want to hit 45. Nobody's like, I hit 40. Just going to kind of stay status quo. No, you're looking to get better. You're looking to get better in the weight room, all this stuff. His OPS before was elite.
Yes.
He was elite.
Do you know what it was
And
in
to finish that-
2019?
Oh, go ahead.
His OPS was 986. His OPS plus was 145. He was a star that year.
And at the end, I know we don't have enough time. He's going to a team where he's going to get a good opportunity to get called up for sure. Let's go.
That's true. I mean, come on, that's fire. Front office, unfiltered.
Nice.
It is Jim Bowden joining us. You'll see him for the most part every week here on FT as our FT resident GM. We're super pumped to have you here. The Foul Territory logo behind you looks absolutely great. JB, how you doing?
I'm doing great, you guys. How are you?
Good. Great to have you here. And, it's kind of like the bat phone for you too. When we see a story pop up, we're like, we need JB on this. So we gave you the late call because we were like, okay, Marcus Stroman dominates the storylines in New York yesterday for not showing up as quickly as everyone else, technically not late. So give us your experience in, this kind of deadline with players and if you've come across this with anyone else. And the next layer of this, JB, is can Marcus Stroman get his wish to be traded because we know that's what he wants? Or would you be like, I'm not touching this situation with a 10-foot pole based on a player not showing up like this and becoming a distraction?
Yeah, I don't like distractions. I like a happy culture. I'll move the player if I can make a trade that makes the Yankees better. That's my quick answer. I mean, look, for Marcus Stroman to stop following the Yankees on social media, and then he's living in Tampa, he's in shape, he's been working out at Legends, and then you're not going to show up with the pitchers and catchers for a couple of days because you want to make a point. Like, really, in this day and age, you want to do that? I mean, first of all, I can't stand the mandatory reporting date because it gives the players that flexibility to come whenever they want up until that date. I think the Players Association should come with the clubs and say, look, let's have every pitcher and catcher report when the team wants them to report. Let the position players report when they want to report and make it consistent. Did I like that he did this? No. What did Brian Cashman say today? Oh, that's vintage Stroman, which is what he is, right? Now, look, I like him, right? He's a good guy. He has always had a chip on his shoulder because at 5'7", no one thought he could pitch in the big leagues, and he's been a very consistent 30-start, 10-win guy. I get that. But he wears out his welcome. He did in Toronto, he did in Chicago, and he's going to do the same thing here. As a former GM, I can tell you, I want guys that want to win. I want guys that will accept whatever role the manager or the team thinks you need to be in to win. I mean, the Dodgers have 10 friggin' starters. Not one of them are complaining whether they start or in the bullpen or whether it's a 5-man rotation or a 6-man rotation. So my initial answer to that is it disgusts me. It's terrible. Move the player. That's what I would do if I can. But at the same time, I want to win. And Marcus Stroman is the 6th best starting pitcher the Yankees have. And if they were to have an injury, which they will because everybody does, they're going to want to have Stroman. So it makes it a difficult situation.
I can understand how it is as a player, seeing another player not showing up, and you're like, okay, you have a feeling. As a GM, what are the steps that you have to go through to handle it? From talking to the player, talking to the manager, talking to the team? Do you just allow that? If you're in Cashman's shoes, do you just let Booney take care of all of this and you just talk to Booney and that's it? Or where does it go?
No, I talked to the players directly. I'll give you a story. I signed Kevin Mitchell as a free agent when I was GM of the Cincinnati Reds, and I called Kevin because he had a history of not showing up on time. And so I called him. I said, Kevin, look, I went on a limb. I made a big trade to get you. Will you just do me one favor and show up when the position players report? Will you just please do that for me? I asked him ahead of time. And he says to me, Jim, absolutely I will. Don't worry about it. And then the reporting date came, and guess who wasn't there? Kevin Mitchell. And then I called the next day and the next day. And the owner's calling me. The owner's upset. You traded for this guy who doesn't want to be here. It was so annoying. So I finally get a hold of Kevin, and I said, where are you? And he said to me, wait a minute, you didn't hear the news? My cousin got shot at the salon in San Diego. And I said, Kevin, that's the same excuse you used last year. You can't do it again this year. And he just kind of laughed. But yeah, it's annoying. It's just annoying because as a GM, I want all my players there on the first day of pitchers and catchers and the first day of position players, or I want them there early working. You're building a culture, you're building togetherness, you're building a team. And honestly, from a front office perspective, it's an important part of it.
I want to talk a little bit about Alex Bregman. You brought up the situation where putting Bregman at third base and moving a couple other pieces around. He got a lot of different offers too. I mean, he turned down one of the biggest offers that he had with the Tigers, and you saw what Scott Harris had to say about the whole situation and everything and that. Talk a little bit about Bregman and, what made him kind of sway his way. What do you think was the possibilities? Because 161 is no slouch of change right there.
Yeah, it's not, Todd, but here's the thing. He got 120 over 3 years, and he can opt out after any single year of this contract, whenever it's best to opt out. And so 3 years at 120 is way better than 6 years at 171 that the Tigers offered, or 6 years at 156 that the Astros offered. He's going to absolutely beat that. Let's just say he stays in Boston for the 3 years. All he would need to do is get $12 million a year the next 3 years to equal what Houston had offered, or $15 million a year for 3 years to beat what Detroit had. So Alex Bregman's going to beat this by signing this deal. That's number one. Number two, I thought, Todd, the two best places for Alex was either go back to Houston, number one, where he succeeded in that ballpark, or number two, I thought Fenway Park was the next best spot because of the Green Monster. He's a pull hitter, and they needed the balance. And I think Boston is a great fit for him. He's got a chance to win. I think a better chance to win in Boston than Detroit, Houston, and even Chicago for that matter. So I liked it from that perspective. I think the part that's going to be fascinating to me is where you're going to play him. Now, I know Alex Cora has come out and said that he thinks he can win a Gold Glove at second base. You know what? Maybe he can. I think he'd be a plus defender. But I can tell you, if I'm looking at the Red Sox, the best alignment is going to be Bregman at third base, move Devers to first base, and open up a pathway for Christian Campbell to play second base and let Tristan Casas DH. That's going to be the best alignment. Not that they can't win with Devers at third and Bregman at second and Casas at first, because they can, but you're going to be watching that team all year, and you're going to say to yourself, you've got two guys that are out of position out of the four. That's what you're going to say. It's going to be the same thing we said about the Padres and Bob Melvin was running them, right? And he had Bogarts at short and Kim at second, and we all kept looking on the field going, no. Kim needs to be at short and Bogarts needs to be at second. Mike Schilt comes in, aligns it that way, and they end up last year, being the second best team in baseball to the Dodgers. So I just think it's important that Alex Cora calls in Rafael Devers and does the best way of convincing him, hey, we need you to go to first base, not just short term, but long term. It's going to be the best position for you. That way we get Bregman, who won the Gold Glove, gets to stay at his position at third base and gives us a better chance to win and helps our pitching staff.
You need to listen to JB, because JB was on here. If you haven't seen JB on here as a fan, he said before, Bregman's either going to go for one of three things, and the one thing hit on perfectly. He made the $40 million. I get it. Some of it's deferred, all that stuff. It's a record. And so if you want to listen to who knows what's going to happen, JB's the guy. But I have to ask you a question. Did you ever have a celebration after signing somebody like this type of celebration that John Henry had? And what was that moment? Because John Henry's wife posted a picture of him with his cigar that we talked about yesterday on Instagram. Did you ever have a moment like this?
No, I never did the cigar thing. The only time I ever smoked a cigar was when we won the World Series in '90, and I got into the waterfall at the Park 55 Hotel in San Francisco. We had swept the Oakland A's, and I got in the waterfall with Lou Piniella and was smoking cigars. That's the only kind of celebration with cigar. But I will tell you, when the Ken Griffey Jr. trade went down, there was champagne popping everywhere, and yeah, that included being poured on my head. That was the only time I ever really celebrated a move.
Nice.
There you go. Okay, I got a few other things to hit with JB. Let's take us to the other big signing that got really overshadowed, but would have dominated the headlines at least for a day or two. Nick Pivetta signs with the Padres. Were you surprised that the Padres not only were able to do an addition after there was so much talk about the budget constraints, but that they were able to talk him into such a unique contract structure that really pays him pebbles for what he could be worth to the rotation in year one, and it's kind of deferred to year two.
Yeah, so once they got the control person settled by Major League Baseball and Peter Seidler's brother was named the control person, that allowed him to be able to go forward with A.J. Preller and give him some freedom to add a little bit of payroll. And of course, A.J. had to get a little creative, $3 million signing bonus, $1 million up front on the $55 million deal to help them for this year. So he got creative to get it done, and the ownership gave him that freedom. Look, Nick Pivetta and his agent made a huge mistake. They were offered $20.9 million on a one-year contract, and they rejected it. How in the world do you reject that? And now he's going to pay the price. I mean, now the AAV is what, just 10 or 11 million a year, and you could have had 20 in the front year and then gone back in the market next year. That was a big mistake. So anyway, Pivetta did the right thing, which is you got to pivot. You got to admit you made a mistake. You can't cry over the mistake. You got to go out there and get the best possible deal you can get for the most money because you turned down 20. So he did that, and he's going to end up okay. He's in a good spot for the rest of his life here. Now, for the Padres, they get a back-of-the-rotation starter. They're not going to have Joe Musgrove all year, so he becomes that fourth guy, right? Dylan Cease 1, Michael King 2, Yu Darvish 3. Now Nick Pivetta becomes the fourth guy, and he's a guy that can win double digits. He can pitch 160 to 180 innings, which is extremely important this day and age, and he's going to do it at a good value. Now, I'm being told that although the Padres listened the entire offseason on offers for Dylan Cease and Michael King, I'm being told they never got an offer they liked. They never got an offer that they were considering, and that now they're ready to go and try to, win the division or win a wild card and try to get back to the playoffs. And look, this is something they can revisit in July if things go south and all of a sudden they're not a playoff team. They can sit there and talk trade at that point. But for now, it looks like that's going to be the rotation to start the year in San Diego.
I love everything about that. I'm looking at your newest article. You wrote a list of teams, best trades, best teams, best acquisitions, least improved teams, and you got the Padres on there right now. Does this sway your decision to change it a little bit, or that you're stuck with this, you can't change this anymore?
No, I mean, look, I'm kind of disappointed, right? I mean, I thought that Ha-Seong Kim was so important defensively at shortstop. I thought Jurickson Profar had that breakout year, and obviously paid dividends, made his first All-Star game. I would have liked to have seen them bring both of them back. I like the Padres, don't get me wrong, but I think they're now the third best team in the West. I think it's Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and then Padres, because I think the Diamondbacks signing Corbin Burns makes their rotation 7 deep, puts them in a good position. I think we'll see Corbin Carroll have a bounce-back year. I think by June, Jordan Lawler will be at third base and Suarez will be DHing, and Lawler will be an impactful guy down the stretch. So I just like where Arizona is, and I wanted to see San Diego do more. There's still time, right? There's still time for adjustments, but right now I see them as the third-place team in the West.
What do you know about the Rendon situation? Obviously, we've seen him play, not play, but there's so many things surrounding for me that, he's now having hip surgery. He didn't know that this was coming, or did he just get hurt? Does a team have insurance on his contract? Is that a normal, regular thing? Because we hear about the Strasburg contract. They weren't able to get it. They still went through with it.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't released the player. It must be Artie Moreno. Obviously, Perry Manassian didn't sign him. It was done by Billy Epler before he got there, and Artie Moreno signed off on it. Player should have been released 2 years ago. He can't play. He's done. He can't play when he's healthy. He can't play when he's not healthy. It's been one of the biggest busts of any free agent signing in this era. It's been a total disaster. And I said this, and the people in Washington didn't like it when I said the Nationals shouldn't re-sign him. And they're like, how can you say that? We just won the World Series. This guy was a top 5 MVP. Because he doesn't like baseball. It's like J.D. Drew. They don't love baseball. They play because it's a job. It's work for him. But there's no incentive past that. Look, he could really hit in his prime. He always had injury prone when he came up with Seattle. He was injury prone when he was drafted. He did have a nice little snapshot of a career. But, you got to be careful with these guys that get into their 30s and you sign free agent contracts, because a lot of these guys don't work out. It takes a special work ethic and a special human being to be able to keep yourself in top condition. throughout your 30s, to be able to play late in your 30s. And the way I look at Rendon, I don't want to waste my time or voice or energy. I don't think we'll ever see him play a game again. I don't. If they want to put him on the emergency IL and keep paying him, that's fine. They can do that. I would release the player and just move on.
I'm so with you, JB. I've been saying it for a while now, and I'm like, if there's anything to karma, if you just get the name off the roster, I feel like they improve right away. You know what I'm saying? It's always a stain, and it's always something that actually kind of dominates the headlines around a team when you're like, can we talk about Zach Neto? Can we talk about Logan O'Hoppe? Can we talk about Trout coming back? It's just negative. So I'm with you.
You know what I learned? You know what I learned, Scott, as a GM, and I learned it early. When you make a mistake as a GM or an owner or manager, whoever's making the personnel decision, if you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is to keep looking at the mistake. Just move on. We're all going to make mistakes. Players aren't going to live up to our expectations. That's going to happen. Or you just made a bad trade or a bad free agent signing and it's on you. Either way, doesn't matter. You don't have to keep looking at it. And, sometimes an owner will sit there and go, well, we got to pay this guy X amount. Okay, but if he can't perform and can't play, we made a mistake. We just have to admit to it and then move on, because your team will always be better. The sooner you move on from a mistake than looking at it, it's going to be better for the culture of the team, the performance of the team, and it's going to be better for the player too, to be honest.
Right. Sometimes I feel like the team, looks at the contract, looks at what the player's done. But in this case, he hasn't done anything for you. So just move on.
Nothing.
I think the Chris Taylor case is a little more interesting, and they gave him a lot of leeway. And I think it could come to a head in this spring training. I think Paje should be on the big league roster. I don't know if you want to jump in there, because I do want to get to your article in a sec too. But I think that's a little more delicate. I'm like, with Rendon, I don't get it. I know that he's getting paid a lot of money, but the career's done. So I'm with you there. All right, let me get to your article if I can, because I want to spend the last couple minutes with you to show everyone what you just put out in The Athletic. And obviously they can get a lot more info there and check out the article, give it a click. But can you give us at least, one or two teasers in there that you really liked? I think we have it if we can show it. So going over some best case scenarios for teams, best trade for one team, best value signing, best and worst overall. I was looking for the right words. Best and worst of this year's MLB offseason.
Yeah, I think what's kind of fun for me to do is just kind of look at, okay, what was the best trade for one team and what was the best trade for both teams, right? For one team, I really like the Kyle Tucker trade for the Cubs. Yeah, you gave up your first-round pick for this year and Isaac Paredes, who has some power, but to be able to get Kyle Tucker to be your right fielder when you have a chance to win the division, I thought that was a really great trade for the Chicago Cubs. But trades are also supposed to work for both sides, right? And I think the trade that I thought was the best trade for both sides was the trade the Chicago White Sox and the Boston Red Sox made that sent Garrett Crochet to Boston, giving them a number one type starting pitcher and a pitcher they control for 2 years, and will have an opportunity to sign him long term. But I thought the White Sox and Chris Getz did a good job in what they got in return. They got a long-term solution at catcher, Kyle Teal. I've seen a lot of them. I think he's a 20 home run, 35, 40 double offensive catcher that's going to be very good at calling games for the young pitching staff in Chicago. Braden Montgomery was the Red Sox number one pick this year. He's a right fielder. I got to spend a lot of time with him during the draft last year. Love his makeup, love the character. And he's an athlete, and he's got tremendous power and should be a long-term solution in right field for the White Sox when he gets there. And they got a couple of mid-level prospects too. But yeah, the article just basically looked at the offseason in a way of just kind of breaking down all the different superlatives. I also have another article out today that ranks all 30 teams in baseball as of today, including several surprises like my take that the Texas Rangers are the second best team in the American League right now.
Ooh, I like that.
What a lead-in.
Wow.
I love that. My lead-in was going to be about your under-the-radar move. What's the best under-the-radar move that you saw this offseason?
What was it? What do you guys have the article there? I forget what
I have it all in front.
It was Jake Berger move for a team that couldn't hit a heater.
Speaking of the Rangers, yes, I love that deal because they didn't give up any top prospects. So the package was mid-level guys going back. And here's an upgrade at first base with power. I was talking to Chris Young in September, right? And he said to me, one of the things he learned this year, of course, he was brought up with pitching and defense. He said, one thing I learned is you got to have power in 2024, 2025. You're going to win. And he said, I got to go out there and find a way to add even more power to my lineup. So he makes that trade for Jake Burger, didn't give up a lot. And that's a 30 home run bat to sit there and plug in first base to replace Nathaniel Lowe, who was a 15 home run bat. He also went out and got Jock Peterson, who, as we know, against right-handed pitching, he's good for another 25 home runs there. So, I mean, this is a team that just added 50 to 55 homers to the bottom of their lineup and really extended the lineup. And that's with, you're going to have Langford's going to be better his second year. Evan Carter is going to be impactful. They're going to get Josh Young back. I mean, this lineup, and they're only a year removed from the World Championship, as we all remember, but this lineup is going to be tough to navigate. And I thought the Burger pickup was a really good under-the-radar move.
Yeah, that's a good one. Burger and Jock, that's a lot of extra thump. I'm a big fan. Yeah. JB, great to have you on. Everyone check out the 2 articles. Our team behind the scenes got real fancy for you on your way out too. So we're excited to have you, a resident GM, Jim Bowden. We can show it on the way out. Thanks, JB.
Thanks, guys. Happy Valentine's Day.
You too. All right, here we are. We're back. Let me see if there were any questions that we did not get to. William, I don't see how the Yankees move Stroman unless they eat 50% of 2025 and 2026 salary if it kicks in. So here's the one part we didn't get to, and I know we've talked a lot about Stro Show, but it's a story, okay? He has a vesting option for next year. So this is where I do want to get the pros and cons of what he said and what he believes, which is that he should be a starter. He signed with the Yankees to be a starter. There were essentially incentives in that contract for him to hit 140 innings, and that was based on him staying healthy, not him cracking the rotation. Sure, there's a little bit of both. If he suddenly falls off the planet and can't be a big league starter, that's different. But he still is a respectable big league starter. He right now could be on the outside looking in, Kratz. So he wants to hit that 140 innings because he gets $18 million next year if he does. So he is very motivated to be a starter. And that's why he very clearly states right from the jump, I'm not going to get paid to be a reliever this year and then lose my contract option for next year. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's the right or wrong thing. I'll let you take that over because this is the former player show. So what do you got?
Listen, I tried to be in the big leagues all the time. I get it. Me and Marcus Stroman are not on the same level. For me, my level is just me. I wanted to be in the big leagues. You signed me. I have an opportunity to be in the big leagues. I do my job. I do well. Why am I not in the big leagues? It's similar. It's happening to a superstar. In his mind, he's a superstar. Reality is he's probably, he's probably a number 4 right now in a rotation. Just because he doesn't get what he signed up for doesn't mean that he needs to hold out or this isn't fair. The game is not fair. The game is going to screw you over at some point. Everybody, it's going to be something different. For him right now, that's what it looks like. Yes, it's okay that he says he wants to be a starter, but you know what? If his vesting option doesn't get picked up, that means the team is doing it. And maybe he doesn't want to be a part of that team. Maybe he just wants the cash.
And I would just say, where does he fit in that rotation? You know what I mean? Does he fit in that rotation right now? I mean, what would you guys think? Yes or no? I don't think he is a top. No, he's not at their top 5 guys. He'd be a nice piece to have, just in case. But we'll see as they move forward in spring training.
Let's sizzle. Hey, Ronald Acuña Jr. is going to play Major League Baseball again this season. I miss Ronald Acuña Jr. Fun player to watch. Fantasy baseball darling, right? He gives you everything. Batting average, home runs, stolen bases galore, RBIs. Oh, wait, hold up. Might be a few less swipes. Might be a few less swipes to preserve the body for the entire season, including the playoffs. I don't like it, but it's just what happens with age and with injuries. So here's Mark Bowman. Acuña spoke today. First of all, huge props to Acuña, and I'm serious on this one. He addressed the media in English, and he usually would work with an interpreter, Marco. So that means he worked on his English this offseason, and I always just have the utmost respect for that. I can barely speak English. Now let me begin. Acuña says he feels good, believes his left knee is more stable than his right knee was coming off the 2021 ACL tear. He acknowledges he will need to be less aggressive on the basis. When asked about not returning until May, he said he'll be ready whenever the Braves clear him. So just gave all the good answers. He's ahead of schedule, but he's going to go off their timetable. Yeah, here's Justin Toscano, who covers the team too. Kudos to Acuña. Basically did the whole interview in English. It was good English. He didn't need Franco, the interpreter, translator. So Acuña joked that he lost his job. Franco lost his job. Alex Anthopoulos spoke and said Acuña won't play in any spring training games, but he might DH in some games on backfields. No discussion of him DHing at all once he's off the IL. And I've heard that multiple times too. They don't want him DHing. They want him in the outfield. No timetable until late spring on his ETA off the IL. They said he's way ahead of the same stage of his previous ACL recovery. So some people are probably going to complain, Todd Father, and say he's ahead of schedule from last time around. He began the last recovery at the start of the season. Why don't you just bring him back right off the jump? They don't want to do that. They want to make sure that they don't have a repeat situation of a few years ago where he came back and he wasn't himself for that entire season. So they've spoken about it a lot and how they want him to take it easy and they want to just give him much more time off the surgery. And I think the key was, Todd Father, that you can't totally tell how much the knee is strengthened, right? So they know that if they give him a little bit more time than last time, even if he's ahead of schedule, they're going to put themselves in a good position. And obviously they feel confident enough that the team can handle the first month of the season without him.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we got to point out is he's working. We saw videos of him running. We've seen him getting after it with PT, physical therapy. This guy is trying to get back in rare form, and I think the best thing they can do is get him back to nearly 100%. I think this is the right move. I think if you're too quick on things, it's going to hurt you in the long run. It might not hurt you in the beginning, but those last 40, 50 games, all of a sudden your body's like, oh boy, I can't keep up. And that's when people get injured. But yeah, I like the move here. These doctors, they have some of the best out there. Every team does. They guys know what they're doing. And if they say maybe another month we'll do it, keep working, go in games, go in the backfield, get your swings in, get some extra running in, and kind of slow the pace here a little bit for him. I think that'll be better for him. I mean, 30 stolen bases is still a pretty good year, in my opinion. So, yeah, he's still going to be a maniac on the base paths. He's still going to go first or third and score on, balls in the gaps and stuff and go trace down balls. But, yeah, you got to be a little more cautious. This isn't the first time. So he's got to be very wary of what he does, even though he'll be back to almost full strength and get after it. But be, aggressive but under control.
I always say, and I've probably said it 4 or 5 times on this show, the half-life of a injury. Like, let's say ACL repair and rehab is 9 months. Let's say that's the number. I don't know exactly what the number is. To me, you almost need another 4.5 months till you are the person you were before. So think about who he was after his first initial ACL injury. Pushed through that season, still had 29 bags. It's great, but you saw it kind of wear on him a little bit. He wasn't able to play the same outfield. And then the next year he went off and won the MVP and was killing it. So your expectations need to be tempered a little bit, in my opinion, for this next season. I don't know which is worse, having your back leg repaired hitting or having your front leg repaired hitting. Because you got to get off your back leg to get to your front leg, but you got to take all the power and transfer it to your front leg. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the cautious approach by the team is what they need to do, because this dude is a horse. And when you let him out of the stable, he's going to go. He knows only one way to play the game. And if the team rushes him, it could be detrimental to him. So to me, they take their time. then they get the best form of Acuña when he's out there. 5 months of a great Acuña is much better than 6 months of an average Acuña.
Bingo. And this team has a motto. It's World Series or bust. It was the motto last spring. Then they had a ton of injuries. This spring, they're kind of hearing it from the media. They keep asking, oh, is that your motto? I've seen multiple players address it. They're like, nah, it's just stay healthy. We're not going to say that again. But internally, they know they've got a bunch of their players locked up in their primes. Acuña's coming back. Strider's coming back. Profar enters the mix. This is a good team. This is a good bullpen from last year, too. This is a good team that I think is not being talked about enough because there's a little bit of jadedness, probably. I know that's probably not a word, but people are jaded because the Braves have been good for a while, right? So they're just like, oh, yeah, the Braves are still there. The Braves might end up being a World Series champ, and I don't think anyone should be surprised if that ends up happening. If Strider comes back and he's firing and Sale stays healthy, they could be a problem.
Minter's going to be tough to replace. I know just one guy that's not your closer isn't always tough to replace. I think what he brought to that bullpen is tough to replace. Somebody has to step up. They have a bunch of dudes, but it's going to be tough to replace because they always produce starting pitching. They're just a farm. I mean, my entire life, the Braves just call up starting pitching.
Your entire life?
Seriously. I mean, I was a Phillies fan growing up. And it's just like, oh, Steve Avery. And then they got, Greg Maddux gets sent over. And then they have John Smoltz. And then they have Tom Glavine. And then you're like, oh, yeah, no chance it's going to happen. And like, they were even doing it last year when they had all those injuries. Bryce Elder came up, was an all-star, struggled, and you're like, oh, man, that's got to be the end. Now they have Ian Anderson who's going to be coming back. Ian Anderson.
Wait, you're missing a huge name. Spencer Schwellenbach is really freaking good.
Right. I mean, I could go through Smith Shogger, all the dudes that they just keep producing starting pitching that comes up, and it's different eras. Before it was like all dudes that throw down and away, and they just spot and they spot the ball down and away, and they hold runners really well. They don't walk too many guys. Now it's like, oh, you know what's cool? Spin rate, top of the zone. Oh, we got 9 of those guys. The Braves have produced starting pitching forever, for a minute.
Yeah, it's special. And last one, too. I mean, Strider was not a first-round pick. He was a 5th-round pick. And there are a lot of scouts looking around like, how did we miss this? He is insane. So anyway, we'll talk more about the Braves at some point. If you want to play out the season already, we want to shout out our friends at Out of the Park Baseball because they just set up pre-orders, so you can pre-order the game. We've played the game. Todd, Father, and AJ had an epic matchup a couple seasons ago with their best squads, but shout out to Out of the Park. It can be pre-ordered today. If you're listening podcast-wise later on, we'll post a link for a 10% discount. So it's $44.99 from now through March 21st. There's 3 days early access. There's bonus perfect team rewards. And if you're new to the party here, for the first time ever, they have the World Baseball Classic as part of the game. It is by far the most detailed sim game you will ever come across, okay? You can do Drive to the Pennant, which kind of streamlines everything for you. If you just want to play out any season, you want to take your team right now and play out a season, take your team and put one player on it. Like, let's say you're Detroit and you're all pissed because you didn't get Bregman, but you want to put Bregman on your team and see if that would have changed things. You can play that season out in a simulated mode. So go check that out. Bring us back for a sec, because I know, Todd, Father, you've played this. So we can get into scenarios, right, where you can go, okay, 2004 Red Sox. Let's say they actually get A-Rod. Would they still have won? You can do all of that. You can keep it simple, like I mentioned, or the detail. Like, do you want me to give you a detail or two? I was talking to one of the developers this morning about the game, and I was like, can I figure out, which food I'm feeding the minor league player? And they were like, actually, you can set up training programs per minor league player. So it's called Performance Lab or Player Development Lab 2.0. I wrote it down. They said you can take every minor league prospect and you can go, hey, I want you to learn a new pitch this offseason. I want you to try to swing for more power, maybe change your launch angle, and it might hurt your contact. And then it's risk reward. Sometimes it's going to work. Sometimes it's not. So if you think you're a big shot, this is the game to be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I got shamboozled there in the bottom of the ninth. It was a fun game to play, of course. You have to let AJ win because then the show turns into you know what. But anyway, it is. You get to decide where to position your players, how to go, you know, everything that comes with baseball. Fun game, and it's not hard to get used to. It's not hard to figure out. But yes, it was a fun game, and their games aren't that long either, and it's very interesting to play. I recommend it for sure.
And during COVID, coaching staffs actually used it to simulate game scenarios when everyone's just sitting at home like, what am I doing? And baseball couldn't figure out how to get back on the field before everyone else, even though they should have. That's a whole nother episode. But there were coaching staffs using it to just sim out lineups and stuff like that. Just, I mean, obviously partially for entertainment purposes, but also just to, you know, play out game scenarios. So anyway, it's awesome. We love it. Shout out to Out of the Park 26. Go get after it, FT fam. There it is. We'll be right back to go over another scenario that you can play out. What if the Angels hadn't signed Rendon yet all that money freed up over the past 5-6 years?
If you recall last year, Arozarena had an incident. I can't remember which team it was, just kind of, you know, how he takes pitches and he got hit by a pitch and some stuff, and there was some jawing back and forth. I watched Dan Wilson pull him aside and have a very frank conversation with him about kind of how you handle things on the field and, you know, not putting your teammates in a bad position to maybe take one in the back. And I think stuff like that we may see a little bit more, but from an overall scheme standpoint or philosophy standpoint, other than being better with 2 strikes, which I know Scott Service preached too, I don't think we'll see a lot because it's essentially the same roster. I mean, they can't really set it up to play any differently than before. Maybe the pieces are a little healthier and they can run more, or maybe the pieces are a little healthier and they won't platoon as much. But from the overall standpoint, I mean, the GM and ostensibly Jerry Dipoto, they control so much of how the team is set up and how the team is going to play that, you know, the manager is there to make sure that the culture and everything else is in a good place.
Is this outfield good enough with a good Julio, Arozarena, and Robles to make these Mariners good?
It certainly has the potential to be better than it's been. I mean, like you look at from an athleticism standpoint, you know, Randy had 20 bags last year stolen. Robles had over 30. Julio had over 30. Like, they can run the bases. They can go get it in the outfield. Randy can be a little indifferent in the outfield. But you are concerned. I mean, like, the concern is like, if you look at Randy's numbers, they've steadily trended lower each year. And, you know, and that was, you know, even when you're hitting in the AL East, which is a heck of a lot more hitter-friendly than the AL West. So there is some concern there. You know, the swing and miss numbers are a little bit higher. And Robles, I mean, for 600 games of his MLB career was kind of a disappointment. And then he gets to Seattle and the new start. And I think under Scott Service is, you know, the previous manager kind of let him just be who he is. You know, I think Davey Martinez got tired of who Victor Robles was for much of his time in DC. But like, Service kind of let him go and he flourished. But is he going to be the guy that hit 330 for 60-some games? Or is he going to be the guy that was like a 227 hitter with low OBP and lots of base running mistakes and all that stuff that he was with DC? So I think there's a lot of questions about whether or not this outfield is good. Like, on paper and what you've seen in the last 6 weeks, yeah, it looks really talented. But, you know, whether or not there's some consistency for the course of a season remains to be seen.
What are they saying? They're spreading rumors, but the rumors might be true here. Pretty confident Anthony Rendon does not want to play anymore. Okay, I know I'm not going out on a limb here. Alden Gonzalez said, I think on TV, and this is where Behind the Halo captured the quote, and Alden's on ESPN, talking to people who know Anthony Rendon, the thought is he might just retire. Hip surgery is a huge undertaking. He's got only 1 year left on his contract after this season. I got to think this is the end. I don't think he plays another game with the Angels. Okay.
Hip surgery is no joke, man.
Yeah, but he can't really retire. He's got to still go through the process and try to get back on the field unless he gets, whatever that medical exemption kind of thing is that says you can't play anymore. I don't think that's going to be the case. So he's going to have to go through the process and try and get himself back for, I guess, next season. But what are we really doing here at this point, Todd Father?
You first off, you get the hip surgery. I mean, you're not going to go, half-hearted into it. You want your hip to be better. This guy's going to, if I'm him, I mean, just to, keep my psyche involved, I want my hip to be good for future in life. I want, eventually down the road, if he, I don't know if he has kids or he want to have kids or cousins or nieces or nephews, he's going to want to play baseball with them, hopefully, in sports and be able to function. So that, and you're not going to want to lose out on that money too as well. I mean, that's just human nature as well. So he's definitely not going to retire. I mean, I shouldn't say definitely not, but I don't think he will. It's something that, there's a lot of money on the line here, and, he's got one more year. Will he ever be an Angel again and get on the field? That's later to be seen.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, then let's poll it. Raise your hand if you think Anthony Rendon plays another game for the Angels. Okay.
Man, it's hard.
Raise your hand if you think he retires.
He's not retiring, Kratz. Actually, here's what's going to happen. They're not going to buy out the deal. He's just going to be out of the picture, and he can kind of slow play the rehab process. I don't know the exact details of the surgery. I don't even know if he had the surgery yet. It sounds like everyone's just kind of done with each other. They could technically just say, here's your money, go away, or he could just be hanging around. I guess on the roster in the offseason is the problem, Kratz. So we get through this season, he doesn't play, and then you're back on the 40-man roster. It just gives you one less spot to work with. Remember, the Nats were doing that with Strasburg until they gave in and said, Uncle, we're done. So you could do that after this season. I feel like on his side, he's going to take his time. He doesn't want to play, and he's going to tell us that, straightforward at some point probably in his life. Like, hey, you just know there's going to be some random podcast that's not even necessarily sports related. He's going to be like, I just didn't want to play ball and my body was failing me. And so I just was done.
When you look at a guy like Rendon, you look at him and you go, wow, this dude is like, he's just stone cold. Like he's up there, he's battling every pitcher, never really shows much emotion. That's how you talk about Anthony Rendon when he's an MVP candidate, when he's a all-star, when he's helping the Nats win a World Series. Now, when he's not on the field, he's not coming back from injuries as quick as we think he should. Now he's viewed in this way, that he doesn't really like the game of baseball, that his comments are viewed as not like, oh, he's just so, he does a good job of blocking baseball out. It's viewed as a negative. He hasn't changed who he is at all. His production on the field is how we're dictating what type of person he is. And to me, if you are either way, it doesn't really matter. You're not just going through a surgery. So I hope for him, it's just like a cleanup that they can milk and not like, hey, we're going in and getting like a big time hip surgery. But I wish for him that it all had turned out differently because he was a really good player.
Agreed.
Dude, he was a star in college too, but the reason that he dropped a few spots, he was coming out of Rice University, was injuries. He's always had injuries. So that part I'm not going to fault him for. And I just think the body's breaking down. He's like, this is annoying to get on the field now. And he admittedly doesn't love the game, and that's always been the case. So it was a bad idea to make the signing because everyone in baseball knew what his attitude was. And you had to be okay with that and know the risk that he was not going to be David Wright, diagnosed with spinal stenosis and still trying to get on the field. This was the opposite of that. I think that was pretty well known in the sport. But yes, you're right, Kratz. That is what made him great and for a moment legendary as a champion with the Nats in 2019 because he did not give a bleep. when he was at the plate. And so the pressure just didn't hit him the same way. He's like, whatever, it's just a game. And a lot of other guys were pressing in those moments. So,
Yep.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right. We'll swing back in a moment to do slap hands, try and get to a few questions that were asked to us on Foul Territory Show's Instagram account. And we might have time to show the Yankees' new digs. Last year, he had a sick season. All-Star MVP. During the year, he was 129 OPS plus. Baseball Reference WAR 9-win player. I mean, he was standout. He was a top 5 player maybe in the American League. But can he crack 19 homers this year? Over under 18 and a half, Todd Father, last year. For all of that, I would have thought in my head, if you asked me before I looked again, 26. He had 21 homers. That's not like the biggest part of his game.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more doubles and triples than home runs. I could see him at a 15 range. Jarren Duran is a special ball player with the Red Sox. I've said this numerous times, and it's not because I play with him with Team USA for qualifying matchups. This kid can fly. He's got Billy Hamilton type speed. He goes and tracks down the balls wherever it is. I feel like he's a staple in center field. I think they should leave him there and have him go get balls left and right and just let him manufacture his way in the outfield and lead him off. I just want him, if he stays healthy, we say this all the time. It's like if he is healthy, my goodness, this guy can put up some video game numbers when it comes to stolen bases, runs scored, and, doubles and triples. So I see around a 15 homer mark, so I will bet the under, but I do see a ton of extra base hits. Even on singles, I see a ton of doubles.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a dude that can turn singles into doubles. So if you're asking me about the doubles, let's make sure we hit that for BetMGM later.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking the over on doubles. I'm taking the under on homers here. Just because his swing doesn't necessarily dictate that he drives the ball to, left field with authority in the sense of over the monster. He's going to drive the ball to right center like the homer he hit in the All-Star game. It's pretty deep out there. Pretty deep in 81 of the games.
Yeah, I'm going under too, just slightly. I like the player a lot. Here's an offer for the basketball people this weekend. Each Friday throughout the season, you can pick a player you think is going to score the first field goal in a game. But if it's not your dude and he scores the second field goal, you get your stake back in cash only on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Be right back. All right, let's slap. I'm going to take 2 questions from Instagram. We asked a question on our story yesterday, and it's just a good reminder for everyone that likes the show and supports the free content that you can follow us on all the platforms, Instagram, TikTok, podcast platforms, etc. Appreciate you, FTTV fan that watches us every day too. So I'll pick 2 for you guys. Here's one blast from the past one or Hall of Fame one. What will be the standard for the Hall of Fame pitchers in 20 years? So I guess a blast to the future, technically. And the question was also posed to Ken Rosenthal on Fair Territory yesterday, Todd Father, because they're like, a lot of those benchmarks that you see for pitchers are just not going to be the same as we move forward. And guys don't go as deep into games. Forget wins. We're even looking now at, innings, a lot of different numbers that are just not going to add up. So what do you think?
I would say for starters, 100 innings. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's a really good question. I mean, what's Kratzy would know more about this than me, man. He's the numbers guy. You guys are the numbers guy. I go on eye test,
ERA.
man. Yeah, ERA. ERA
ERA
is
plus.
a big one. I don't know what the plus is, but I go with ERA. Strikeouts I think is another big one, and wins for me.
Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. We don't have the standard counting numbers, but they look at who dominated. Who dominated for 10 plus years in the show. That's what it's going to be. Warren Spahn dominated differently than, Midnight Train Johnson, who dominated differently than Randy Johnson, who's dominating differently than Chris Sale. Like, you sit there and it's whoever dominates their era for a 10 plus year span.
That's a good way to put it. It's stories. We don't have to be obsessed with numbers. I kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other question was if the Mets are going to pursue Dylan Cease that we had picked out from this group. And I'll say yes, but they're not going to get him because I don't think the Padres are going to trade him now. And let's move to the last 2 minutes of the show to show off new digs. Todd Father and Kratz, our former Yanks, get to see what they never were able to experience. It's called Four Seasons Tampa at the Ballpark. They did apparently model it a little bit after a little resort style action, and also input was given by guys like Judge and Garrett Cole. Judge, for example, was like, hey, we need the batting cages to be expanded and also enclosed. So we're getting Brian Hoke's best footage here of outside, inside, weight room. Thoughts, Todd Father?
They've always had a good weight room there too, Kratzy. You know that. This is absolutely spectacular. I'll be down there in April too. I'll be announcing a game down there. I'm really excited to go check all this out here. Hopefully they'll give me a tour, so it'll be fun.
Ooh. Take some pictures and videos for us. I like the hot tub, cold tub that were massive and had the massive big screen. So if you want to try and distract yourself for a few minutes, if you're in the cold tub and everything's kind of falling apart for you.
Put a little foul territory on at 1 so you can, stay in there a little longer.
Exactly. Quick, Kratz hats. What team is it?
I mean, how did you know we were gonna the away spring training hats?
Wow.
The away spring training. We end with the Yanks hat.